What's good? Welcome into Sports Burst. Today on the program, Eric Krakauer joins me. I'm Andres Cordero, and Real Madrid dropped the ball like Sergio Ramos drops trophies from the top of celebratory buses. We'll also talk Liverpool, now world champions for the first time in their history, and Barcelona alone at the top of the table after a year of much criticism and no one happy. That's all coming up now on Sports Burst. Welcome into a brand new Sports Burst. Once again, he's Eric Krakauer. I'm Andres Cordero. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. That's underway now. And Eric,
Kwanzaa.
Yes, Happy Kwanzaa.
Gotcha. Well,
Has that started yet?
Happy everything.
Do send us your comments, your questions
Holiday.
ahead of this, I guess, holiday edition of Sports Burst. Now, we will begin with LaLiga, Eric, because for the first time since late October, Barcelona and Real Madrid are no longer level at the top of the table. I think it was from matchday 12 until this weekend. They were lock in step. Let's start with Barcelona first, because they are in first place, holding on to sole possession of the top spot. And they win 4-1 against Alaves at home, closing out the year, closing out the decade, really, with a pretty dominant showing in which all four of their top scorers got on the board. Messi, Griezmann, Suarez, and Arturo Vidal, who is the fourth top scorer right now for Barca.
And scored a lovely goal, that shot from the right-hand side, just curling it in before the post. You know, it's kind of disappointing as a La Liga fan to see Barcelona ahead of Real Madrid. I wanted them to end the year on the same amount of points.
Gotcha.
I don't know if it doesn't really change much of the narrative going forward,
right,
because the distance is so tiny between the two teams. But I think it would have been a good story to end on. And in that game against Alaves, there were some periods in the first half where Alaves, I thought, played really well and with some guts against Barcelona. But over time, well, it was a total destruction.
You're going to have to walk me through this one. Why is it a better story that they're
just level, the parity, because the parity, they're level on points. It's like, neck and neck. They're going to the end, and they're still pretty close. I just think it would be a good ending, to the year.
So Luis Suarez, pretty good showing in this one. And there is a difference between Suarez at home and Suarez away from home.
Yep.
Seems to just be more comfortable, work harder. He had, 3 assists and a goal? Yep. So he's involved in all four of the goals for Barcelona. He had a recent interview, and send us your thoughts on this, because he welcomed Barca signing a new number 9, a new center forward, somebody to come in and compete with him and eventually take over sole possession of that top spot. Should that be a top priority right now for Barca, picking up that other center forward, the next Luis Suarez, or can they get by with what they have?
I think they can get by with what they have, but I do think that they need to go shopping for another guy that can perhaps learn a little bit from Luis Suarez, because look, he is in top form, and I don't think he's anywhere near done at Barcelona, but he has become a little bit more injury prone, and you need somebody to step in. And we saw that it was a failed experiment with Prince Boateng. And who else is going to step into that number 9 role? Griezmann has played in that position sometimes this season. It doesn't really work out. When he's not on the field, it makes a huge difference, particularly at home, as you said. There needs to be somebody there in case he gets injured. And also to save his legs a little bit for the big games.
Saw a question here from Amrinder Bhatti, who says that, less of a question, more of a statement. Although I guess there's a question at the end of it. Vidal needs to start. Do you guys agree? Vidal did start this one. By the way, it's curious because Busquets, apparently due to illness, did not start the Clasico midweek. He does start against Alaves at home in the final game of the year. But I think more interesting is the two guys that started alongside him. Frankie de Jong was rested. And so instead we got Arturo Vidal and Carles Aleñá, which is almost like the two different sides of the philosophical argument about how Barcelona ought to play. Both were in the starting lineup now. Do you agree, just mentioned a moment ago, Vidal is their 4th top scorer after the front 3 of Messi, Suarez, and Griezmann. Do you agree that Arturo Vidal needs to start?
Yes and no. I think this is...
There is no yes and no. What do you mean yes and no?
It is yes and no.
They're mutually exclusive. It's yes, he starts, or no, he doesn't
Rotation.
start.
I think that what Valverde did against
Okay, so let me
Alaves,
rephrase. Is Vidal in the Gala 11?
No.
Okay.
He's not in the Gala 11. He isn't. But I think that what we saw against Alaves is a pretty balanced midfield with Busquets behind Aleñá and Vidal on the right side. Aleñá gives you that skill, and there's been a clamoring for the academy product to be included in the 11 more, or to come off the bench a little bit more, because he does have a little something special in his left foot. I think he had a blemish in his performance. The goal that Alaves scored was, I think, his responsibility. He didn't track his runner. I forget who it was who scored for Alaves.
Oh, then it's a good thing you brought it up.
but well, I was talking about it because of Alenya. I want to see more of Alenya on the field. He's a player that I really enjoy watching because he's a skillful player, and I think that when you talk about Barcelona, you think more of skillful players and less about guys who will truck up and down like Arturo Vidal.
Pere Pons, by the way, scored the Alaves goal.
Yeah.
I believe he also committed the penalty that led to the Luis Suarez goal.
He may have done.
So here's why I don't think Arturo Vidal ought to be in the starting 11. If Barcelona are going to control games, if Barcelona are going to play to the height of their potential, then they need ball players and playmakers in that midfield. And that's why whether it's Artur or Alenya, it's probably a better fit to get the most out of, to get the ball to the front three as much as possible. Otherwise, you risk that fracture with Messi and Suarez not doing a ton defensively. Griezmann trying to do his thing, but it's still, with Arturo Vidal, you have less of a link up to those front three offensively than you would with an Alenya who can break through lines with his dribbling or with his passes, and certainly than Artur, who is, Xavi-esque in his ability to control possession and play those through balls in. And so for that reason, I think Vidal, for me, and maybe this is a role that he's not willing to accept because he said that if he doesn't feel important, he'll move on. But because I don't think he's that sort of stylistic fit, I think he's a better option when things aren't going your way and you need to take a sledgehammer to the midfield. That's when you bring in Arturo Vidal.
By the scruff of the net. I completely agree. And to the point that you just made about controlling the game and controlling the ball, I think we saw a little bit of that in the second leg against Liverpool at Anfield, when Liverpool were pressing very high and Barcelona were having a lot of trouble getting out of that defensive posture.
I hear you, but Liverpool were pressing in the first leg too, and Barcelona won that one.
Yeah, okay, they did, but as you said, and we know, Barcelona is different at home than they are away. And there's something about the Camp Nou. There's something special. It's the size of the field. It's the fans. It's everything. Every opponent goes there and basically poops their pants. But I will say this. My only caveat is this one. I love Artur as a player. I saw a little bit of him, and this was before we had the rights to the Libertadores at Grêmio, and I thought he was very impressive. There's been those comparisons to Xavi, which I think are correct.
Right down to the random shot from 25 yards out. That it seemed like during that era, like the Pep Guardiola era, the only player willing to take a shot from distance was Xavi. And Artur takes that random 30-yard shot for no reason.
Yeah, and he's scored a couple of them. But the only caveat is I like Rakitic in the Gala 11.
Yeah, we haven't even brought him up, right?
Yeah, and the reason I like him...
That's a highly unpopular stance, but I hear you. Go on.
No, it is. And the only reason is this. He's a better ball player than Arturo Vidal. He's better with the ball at his feet, I think.
Okay.
And I don't think Arturo Vidal is in any way a bad ball player. He's just not up to the caliber of the midfield teammates that he has.
Yeah.
But what Rakitic gives you that Artur does not is the verticality that I think that sometimes was missing. De Jong gives you that as well, but he needs a little bit of help.
So does Alenya, though, and I think that's the question.
That's true.
For me, it's not, for Valverde, it has been Vidal versus Rakitic, right? Those are the two guys that he seems to be alternating next to Busquets and De Jong, who do seem to be the permanent fixtures in the midfield. Artur when he's healthy, although he's been out for a while. But I think the question is more, throw Alenya into the mix, and you've got those three players competing for one spot. Yeah. Alenya, Rakitic, and Arturo Vidal. And I do think it's interesting that Alenya had played significantly in the lead-up to the Clasico. Didn't feature at all in the Clasico. Obviously, it was a bit of a throwaway game against Inter, different lineup, different system, because Barca had already clinched the top spot in the group stage. But, excluding the Clasico, Alenya had played in 4 of 5 games, and he does again from the start here. And he's 21 years old. He's a young player, but he's brought up through La Masia, and he's got, I think, a little bit of what's missing from the Barcelona midfield and what Rakitic used to give you when Rakitic was in his prime.
Yeah.
And that is, again, a player who can break through lines with his dribbling, a bit like what Modric did in his prime for Real Madrid, respecting the difference between Ballon d'Or winner and, World Cup runner-up Luka Modric and Carles Alenya, who's still, as Ray Hudson likes to say, learning his footballing alphabet.
Yeah.
It's that ability to break through lines with his dribbling and with his passes that I think Barcelona are missing right now, and Alenya gives them that. The question is, will Valverde show enough faith in him to play him in big games, not just throwaway ones?
There's only one problem with Alenya. And it's not problem is, I think, too strong a word. He doesn't give you the same defensive presence that a Rakitic does. If you need that defensive presence, and we saw against Alaves when he didn't track Pere Pons that could be an issue.
You guys can't read this because it's too small.
There's absolutely no way I can read it.
Yeah, he's asking, as commentators, how you basically keep your biases in check when it comes to being a fan of a team.
Well, I get accused of hating teams all the time.
Yeah.
This is, I'm going to derail this thing for a second because there's a really interesting sort of perception issue with people when they hear commentary, and that is the things that you agree with. When someone says something good or positive about your team, you just accept that. You just like, yeah, of course that player is good. Of course that team is good. That is working. That's a given, and you forget it immediately. But the moment anybody says something that goes contrary to the things you already believe or you perceive as negative, that stays with you. And so at the end of the game, you take stock of, you forget all the positive things that were said about your team, and you are locked into all the negative or perceived negative things. And so you think, well, that commentator was biased because he might have said 20 positive things and 4 bad ones, but you remember those bad ones and you completely forgot the good ones.
It's like when 100 people give you a compliment and then one person says something nasty about you and you're like, how dare you say that? And it just sticks in your craw for a while. Look, to answer the question specifically.
Which I didn't do, but go ahead.
I've got no horse in any of the races that we commentate on.
But if, say you do. But say you didn't.
Look, I just think it's something you do where you try and shut off your biases whichever way you can and be as objective as possible. I know that's the most shallow possible answer to your question, but I think that's the thing, and try and be very measured in your commentary. But, and Dre and I were having, just between the two of us, we have a lot of discussions, and many times we disagree with each other, and we're actually having a discussion about commentary yesterday that I won't go into the details, but that discussion was born from the fact that I was criticized heavily by PSG fans online for being critical of some of Icardi's limitations at PSG and elsewhere.
Real Madrid.
Sure, but then just to answer the question, honestly, I've been doing this 15 years now. It doesn't. The teams that are playing I don't have a bias toward or against any of them when I'm commentating a game. What I feel my obligation is to tell the truth about the game that's in front of me, not about, and so I purposely try and avoid the sort of the narratives and the transfer rumors and all the things swirling and the reputation, and rather just focus on the 90 minutes, because I think that's what the fans are showing up for. You can get the analysis and the breakdown and the criticism then on shows like The Locker Room and the Soccer Extra and whatnot. To me, that's not what the 90 minutes of the game is. The game is about the football that's in front of you, and it's really hard to be, I think, when you've done it as long as I have, to be biased for one team or another when you have that LaLiga or Liga or these wonderful properties to cover. Let's move on to Real Madrid, because for the 3rd consecutive game, Madrid dropped the ball. 2 scoreless draws, and you can say they had some moral victories in how they played well against Valencia and they tied it up at the death. They played better than Barcelona at the Camp Nou. The more I think about the game, the less I think Madrid played very well, because they only had 4 shots on target, and all 4 were in the first half of that game. So 0 shots on target in the second half of a game in which they dominated that first half. And now for the 3rd consecutive game, they dropped points once more. During a time when Barcelona aren't at their brilliant best, although they were better against Alaves. And it was a missed opportunity for Real Madrid to go into the winter break alone atop the table. Instead, they draw with Valencia, they draw with Barcelona, and they draw with Athletic, scoring 1 goal. And the 1 goal they did score was at the death against Valencia, needing Thibaut Courtois to come up and help out.
Yeah, and part of that, first of all, I agree with everything you said, which is rare. But but it also it brings up a point that we discussed on the Locker Room, the Real Madrid special that we did, where we talked about the fact that Benzema is the goal scorer on this team, and then there's nobody else behind him who's coming up with the goals. And I think we saw a little bit of that against Athletic. We did see Jovic header a ball off the post.
So I hear that, and yes, I think that this Madrid, for their ambition, are missing goals. Yeah. But they've scored the 2nd most goals in La Liga.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but that's true. That speaks to the exploits of Karim Benzema this season, who has scored 1 less goal now than Lionel Messi.
So
right?
what I mean is,
so that's part of it.
Right. But we rave about Real Sociedad because they've got all this great attacking talent and they've been playing beautifully.
But they also play a different type of football.
We look at Villarreal going forward, and they've been great.
Yeah.
Real Madrid have outscored both those teams.
Yeah, well, they got more talent up top, and I guess it speaks a lot to what Benzema has done. We cannot forget that Benzema is showing up this season even more than last season. But the point that I was going to make is this. We saw them have ample opportunities against Athletic. Unai Simon had a very good game. They should have put something away. But the same problem, even though they did have those opportunities, they're playing against weaker opposition than Barcelona, and the same problem presented itself in this game, and that is they lack a certain elaboration in the final third, Real Madrid. And that is the one thing that stands out about Barcelona. Even under Valverde, who gets killed for not playing the most beautiful football, Suarez, Lionel Messi, and even Griezmann, who hasn't taken to Barcelona like a fish to water, they just come up with more options to attack goal. There's more versatility to their attack. And I think that is a problem with Real Madrid. And my last point, Dre, real quick, is we criticized, especially me, Atletico Madrid, for not capitalizing on the fact that Barcelona and Real Madrid did not start the season very well.
You're jumping ahead. We've got Atletico.
No, I know. If we criticize Atletico Madrid, we have to criticize Real Madrid for not taking their opportunities when Barcelona is not at their best. That's the only point I was making with the Atletico.
Sure, that's fair. I just wonder if we're making too much. Granted, Barcelona have 47 goals this season. Real Madrid have 33.
Right.
But the argument that Madrid don't have enough goals when they're the second top scoring side is, I don't know, I'm not fully convinced by it. And I wonder if it is just because Zidane talked after the 0-0 against Athletic from the Bernabeu, saying that he's not worried as long as Madrid are creating chances. And most managers will tell you, if we're creating chances, you trust in the process, those chances over the course of a 38-game season will go in.
And every manager will say that, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. But it's because it's true. Because you're concerned if you're not creating chances. Because then it's not about putting the ball in the back of the net. It's about not getting the opportunities to score.
Yeah, agreed.
And so is it just as simple as Eden Hazard comes back? And granted, Hazard is not the high volume goal scorer that's going to put up 25 goals in the rest of the season, but he creates chances for other players.
Yeah.
He creates opportunities in the box that other guys can't put away.
That will be key. That will be key. And you saw how much of an absence Hazard was against Barcelona. You said it yourself. Even though Real Madrid were dominant, they didn't turn that dominance into goal-scoring opportunities. Everything was from distance. Would it have been different with Hazard on there? Well, we'll never know, but I think that you can make the argument that yes, because other than Isco in that lineup, who else is going to have that sort of individualistic flair to break down defenses?
Well, Bale. For one, assuming he sticks around.
More speed and drive, really, than I'm talking about the ability to dribble, take a couple of defenders on one-on-one in short spaces.
Vinicius?
Yeah, but
we've
seen his product, yeah. And he had an opportunity. By the way, the shot that got saved by Unai Simon,
yeah.
He had a square ball to Benzema. I'm surprised Benzema didn't kill him because it was an open netter.
He beat a man and he had a shot himself, and it was a nice kick save by Unai Simon.
It was a great save, yeah.
He's so, it's so delightful and frustrating to watch Vinicius play because you can just see he's got just so much talent, and he's got an ability that few players outside of Eden Hazard have at Real Madrid, which is to take players on, to dribble straight at 1-2 guys, split the defense. It just seems that once he gets there, he's either panicked or rushed or out of breath, and that finishing touch is so infuriating for Vinicius.
You know what? I imagine Isco looks at Vinicius with anger, because if Isco had a little bit of the explosiveness,
the acceleration,
Isco would probably be one of the best players in the world.
Let's see if we have any questions here. Lance Pimentel says Madrid need a goal-hungry finisher. He offers up a couple. Lance says Sterling, Sane, Agüero, Lewandowski. Vini is good, but not consistent enough. It's also a little bit discouraging to see, and again, you don't want to put too much of the expectations, as they did with Vinicius last year, on young players like Vini and Rodrigo. But Rodrigo looked cold-blooded in front of goal early in the season, given his opportunities. And now it seems like water finds its level, and he looks a little bit out of his depth.
Yeah, he does. I don't think that he's played very well in holistically. I don't think it's just in front of goal. He was very disappointing against Valencia. What is it? A week ago now? A week and a half ago? Against Valencia?
Previous weekend.
I'm losing track of...
well, there's a condensed calendar because they played this weekend. Madrid and Barcelona played midweek in the makeup Clasico, and then Valencia was
the game against Valencia. So it's not just in the attacking third where Rodrigo seems to have taken a step back. It's everywhere else on the field as well.
So let's move on to Atletico Madrid because they beat Betis 2-1 on the road, and all of a sudden it's an offensive explosion for Atletico. I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but not really, because it's three straight games with 2 goals.
Yeah.
But
you know what? They doubled their usual production. So
which is the 1-0, right? Or 1-1. And in this case, they needed that second goal because Betis did get one back. And they win at Benito Villamarin after putting 2 past Lokomotiv Moscow. They won that one 2-0. Who did they beat 2-0 after that? Was it Osasuna?
It was Osasuna,
Osasuna, 2-0, which, by the way, we can spend this entire half hour talking about Chimi Avila.
What a goal.
And then 2 goals, and the second was brilliant. And so they win 2-1 against Betis now. And it was a Betis side that were improving under Rubi. Yes, they were held at Espanyol the previous week, but it's a team that has started to put it together. So impressed with Atletico Madrid at the end, or you've been disappointed with them most of the season, but here they are. They're in it right now.
We were watching that game very, very closely. Betis had their opportunities. Fidal hit a ball off the post. So did Canales. So I think that Betis will be hard done. But having said that, this is a big win for Atletico Madrid.
Right. So I said they're in it. They're only 5 points back of Real Madrid in second place right now. And they're finally back into the top four, which I think that's the obligation for Atletico Madrid isn't to win La Liga. It's to finish top three. And they're right now just 2 points behind Sevilla.
I mean, we can argue about the obligation.
What do you think the obligation of Atletico is?
You say finishing top three?
Yeah.
As long as they're competing for the top spot. So
no,
you can,
I disagree.
I know we disagree. I think that you could,
I saw that coming.
yeah, compete for the top spot. If you finish third, but you are within touching distance, and we can argue what touching distance means,
right.
of the first place, I think then fine.
Is
But
7 points touching distance?
I would say yes.
They're 7 points off the face of the
right.
road.
Okay. Yes. They should be closer.
Right.
They've dropped points when they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Look, right now, especially because of this Real Madrid slip-up, they're looking better. This win against Betis, they're looking better. But it was by no means a fun game to watch from the Atletico Madrid side. I mean, it was boring. Cordero had to come from off.
How good is he?
He's fantastic. He comes off the bench, harasses, I think it was Bartra who lost the ball. He sort of redeems himself with a goal afterwards. But to answer your question, if you're in third place and you're 10, 15 points away, no, that's just not good enough for the money that you've spent.
But they're not there.
No, they're not
So
there.
then you're happy with them.
Right now, yes.
Let's move on to
I'm very capricious.
The Club World Cup final just took place this weekend, and we thought Flamengo would give Liverpool a game. They did give them a game, but it wasn't enough because Liverpool, at the death, get it done. Bobby Firmino with the game winner, and Liverpool, for the first time in their history, world champions. They lost 31 years ago. They lost to Zico's Flamengo.
Yeah. 3-0, wasn't it?
It was 3-1 or 3-0.
Yeah.
Kenny Dalglish's Liverpool.
Yeah.
And, 3 decades later, here they are, top of the world. And they haven't been, here's the curious thing for me is they are dominant without dominating every game.
Yes. Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. I had to process that a little bit. Yes, it does make sense. But the fact that, and the fact that they scored against Monterrey, they scored very late. It was Firmino as well. Great ball from the right back, Arnold.
Trent Alexander-Arnold.
It's Trent Alexander-Arnold. God, I always mix that up. And again, Firmino in extra time scoring the goal. And that has been reflective of what we've seen from Liverpool this season. Not necessarily playing the best football. It's not so dependent on the top three, dazzling all the time. They just grind results out, and we saw it in this competition. Sadly for Flamengo and Monterrey, who will go back to Mexico, the fourth team to finish in third place. They've done it twice now with their heads held up high because they played, I think, out of all the teams, the nicest football in the tournament.
Right. So I just want to respond to Richard Murray here, who says the problem is the idea that club spending dictates the table position they need to be in.
Well, that's reality.
Club spending dictates the quality of players that you have. So we're thrilled with a club like Atalanta in their very first Champions League campaign punching above their weight because their budget is so minuscule compared to some of the teams that didn't make it. If you're Atletico Madrid, yes, you're not as rich as Barcelona or Real Madrid, but you're about $100 million richer than the next richest club, which is Valencia.
No, but then also that's why the Atletico Madrid title meant so much, because you won with less than the other.
Considerably less.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
And that's why Napoli's runs to second place behind Juve were so impressive, was because they paid a fraction of what Juve were paying for their players.
Or why Monaco's title in 2017 was so impressive against a Paris Saint-Germain that had broken every transfer record in Ligue 1. And here come a bunch of upstart young players put together, and that makes it more
why
special.
There's more responsibility on Atletico Madrid, and why Manchester United is just the pits.
No, there you go. Because
and on
they
that
have
note,
more money than anyone, and they should be doing better.
I think we'll end on that exclamation mark. He's Eric Krakauer. I'm Andres Cordero. Thanks so much for spending
He's the
part of your day
before,
with us.
I'm the after.
On Sports First. Goodbye.